Israel launched a high-stakes, coordinated assault on Iran, unlike anything seen in recent years. The groundwork began nearly 8 months ago when Israeli intelligence operatives entered Iran under assumed identities. These agents spent months setting the stage for a campaign that would blend cyber-era precision with old-school covert sabotage. Smuggling drones and explosives into the country piece by piece, they modified ordinary civilian vehicles to serve as mobile launch platforms. These disguised trucks, stationed within about a dozen miles of their targets, were equipped to launch attack drones directly from within Iran's own borders. Their targets were Iran's air defense systems, specifically radar installations and surface-to-air missile SAM batteries. In the early morning hours of Friday the 13th, the mission went live. Drones launched from these hidden vehicles took off and struck Iran's SAM sites, successfully knocking out major chunks of the radar network and weakening Iran's ability to detect incoming threats. The strikes were designed for shock and precision, and they worked. This wasn't the first time drones had been used this way. Ukraine had just conducted similar operations against Russian targets, but Israel's follow-up made it an entirely different game. At the same time as these drone strikes, Israeli Special Forces operatives infiltrated deep into Iranian territory. They may have arrived via stealth helicopters or unmarked cargo planes, some of which were spotted over Syria later that day. These ground units maneuvered through Iran's desert terrain, avoiding security patrols as they got within striking distance of additional air defense locations. Armed with Spike NLOS non-line-of-sight missile launchers, the commandos engaged targets from up to 20 miles away. These missiles are designed to be fired from hidden positions, can be guided in flight, and leave a minimal firing signature. Once launched, they can lock onto a target midair and adjust course, offering an accuracy margin of less than 3 feet. The teams hit multiple anti-aircraft systems. With each successful strike, they further stripped away Iran's ability to mount a coordinated air response. Israeli commandos used night vision and thermal concealing gear to evade detection, and later footage release confirmed their operations on Iranian soil. It's rare for any country to expose its covert operators publicly, but Israel made a calculated decision to showcase their reach. By doing so, they signaled that Iran's internal security could not stop them, and that no site was safe. Then came the most brazen move yet. Israeli operatives had been quietly constructing a kamikaze drone base inside Tehran itself, not outside the city, not on the move, inside a static building disguised as an ordinary home on the city's outskirts. The structure housed armed drones pre-programmed to attack key Iranian military sites. One of the primary targets was the base at Es-Jabad, one of Iran's most secure facilities where long-range ballistic missiles are housed. Around 3 in the morning, those drones were remotely activated. They struck their military targets and then hit high-ranking individuals, generals and nuclear scientists, who had been lured to the same location by carefully mapping their patterns and coordinating a false meeting. The objective? Eliminate Iran's command structure and cripple its ability to launch a coherent response. The sabotage was only the prelude. With Iranian air defenses in ruins and leadership disrupted, Israel moved into the next phase, a full-scale aerial assault. Roughly 200 fighter jets lifted off in a tightly coordinated attack. These included a mix of F-15s, F-16s, and F-35s. They likely crossed through Syrian airspace, which at the time had minimal functioning air defenses. The F-35s were outfitted with external fuel tanks, sacrificing some stealth in exchange for extended range. These jets dropped 500-pound JDAM precision-guided bombs targeting key strategic sites across Iran. In the opening waves, more than 300 guided munitions were fired, most likely more as time progressed. The earlier sabotage had cleared the skies. With radar arrays and missile batteries destroyed, the Israeli jets had air superiority. There was virtually no Iranian response. Israel flew SIAD missions, suppression of enemy air defenses, knocking out more radar systems and neutralizing Iran's ability to detect or respond in real time. Targets included nuclear enrichment facilities, command and control centers, missile depots, and weapons production complexes. The Natanz nuclear site was hit, along with Bid Khana, where several ballistic missile projects are headquartered. Altogether, more than 100 locations across Iran were bombed during 5 tightly packed airstrike waves. The Israeli Air Force was able to strike with impunity, launching standoff missiles from distances of up to 250 miles. These precision-guided weapons were capable of hitting individual buildings with minimal deviation. In a notable escalation, some of the F-35s hit residential buildings in Tehran, an aggressive move that shifted the battle from pure military targets to high-value individuals. That included scientists, senior officers, and strategic planners. These were not random apartment complexes. These were deliberate strikes on figures viewed as essential to Iran's missile and nuclear programs. Satellite and radar imagery began to pour in, with no cloud cover blocking visibility. Initial analysis showed Iran had lost at least 40 air defense systems, many of them destroyed by Israeli commandos on the ground before the jets even arrived. Multiple ballistic missile launchers were also shown obliterated in footage released by Israeli officials. The hits were not just military, but psychological, broadcast to show the depth of Israel's infiltration and firepower. Iran's military command structure suffered direct blows. At least 30 senior commanders were reportedly killed. The Revolutionary Guard's top general and Iran's chief of staff were confirmed dead. Around 6 nuclear scientists were also eliminated. According to Iran, 78 people died in the strikes, with more than 320 injured. Iranian state media claimed most casualties were civilians, though the targeted nature of the attacks suggests otherwise. One of the most jarring aspects of this operation was what didn't happen. Normally, Iran's proxy forces, Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, would retaliate quickly. But this time, they stayed quiet. That silence spoke volumes. Either communication channels were down or the command structure was so disrupted that they could not mount a response. In Iran's direct retaliation, about 150 ballistic missiles were launched at Israel. This was consistent in volume with past responses, but marked a new escalation in terms of target choice. For the first time, Iran hit Israeli civilian areas, not just military installations. Several apartment blocks were struck, and in one case, an entire city block was reported as wiped out. One volley targeted Israel's military headquarters, the Kiryat, comparable in role to the Pentagon. 7 missiles broke through air defenses and made impact. 3 civilians were killed and over 40 wounded, according to Israeli authorities. Israel's next move raised the stakes even further. They struck Iran's oil fields. Targeting economic infrastructure was a new chapter, one Israel had threatened but never enacted until now. The message was clear. If Iran hits cities, Israel will hit the state's economic lifeblood. All of this traced back to a long-standing principle in Israeli defense policy, the Begin Doctrine. It states clearly that Israel will not allow hostile regimes to acquire nuclear weapons. That policy has already led them to bomb a nuclear reactor in Syria. Now it was Iran's turn. The United States, while not a direct participant in the strike, played a clear supporting role. 2 American Navy destroyers stationed in the region helped intercept Iranian missile volleys. Patriot missile batteries, already positioned in recent months, joined the defense alongside THAAD launchers. American fighter jets began regular patrols in the area, flying cover over U.S. facilities and troops. Weeks earlier, the U.S. had rerouted approximately 20,000 missile interceptors from Ukraine to the Middle East. At the time, it seemed like routine repositioning. Now it looks more like preparation. These moves suggest Washington likely knew what was coming, even if its involvement was limited to protecting its own assets. Whether this strike was designed to cripple Iran's nuclear capability or dismantle its government is up for debate. Israel's choice of targets suggests a deeper objective: systemic disruption. If they lacked the bunker-busting bombs required to fully destroy Iran's heavily fortified underground nuclear infrastructure, then their next best option was to eliminate Iran's ability to retaliate. That meant taking out high-ranking officials, blinding radar coverage, hitting economic pressure points, and striking with psychological precision. The diplomatic theater that surrounded this attack added another layer. In the days leading up to it, the U.S. had been involved in another round of talks with Iran. The timing of the airstrikes, just before a scheduled 6th round of negotiations, may have been calculated. By keeping diplomatic discussions alive, Israel and its allies may have lured Iran into a false sense of calm. The moment for action came before Iran could anticipate or react. So, was Iran actively building a nuclear weapon? Israel insists it was. According to their intelligence, Iran had developed a crude warhead design. But for many observers, that's not enough. Trust in government claims about weapons of mass destruction took a major hit 2 decades ago during the Iraq War. Since then, American intelligence has consistently assessed that Iran does not currently have an active nuclear weaponization program. Without stronger evidence, many are cautious about accepting the justification for such a large scale strike. Regardless, the operation demonstrated just how deep Israeli intelligence had penetrated Iran. Agents used fake European passports embedded in Iranian society for years, posing as business people, journalists, or humanitarian workers. They created elaborate cover stories and recruited locals, disaffected Iranians or ethnic minorities, to assist in reconnaissance and logistics. Smuggled drone parts came in disguised as consumer electronics or mechanical components, then were reassembled inside the country. 3D printers were also likely used to produce parts locally, minimizing traceability. Israel has historically worked with anti-regime groups inside Iran. The Kurds in the northwest and Baluch insurgents in the southeast, both active along Iran's most porous borders with Iraq, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, have helped smuggle weapons and operatives in and out of the country. Their involvement explains how such a complex and multi-tiered operation could have been sustained over months without detection. The success of this campaign also opens new questions. Could similar tactics be used elsewhere, even inside Western nations? Recent unexplained drone sightings over military bases in places like New Jersey hint at dry runs or reconnaissance efforts. As drones become more advanced and more accessible, the risk spreads. Kamikaze drones, once the stuff of futuristic warfare, are now small enough, cheap enough, and lethal enough to reshape modern conflict. Iran and Russia have both just experienced the consequences. Military planners in the US and Europe are already adapting. Whether this changes the face of warfare long term is uncertain. What's clear is that Israel's strike was more than an isolated military act, it was a demonstration. It showed how a nation with limited strategic depth could still inflict systemic disruption on a far larger opponent. The message wasn't just for Tehran, it was global.